All right. Well, like I said, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today to talk a little bit about the energy industry and the various job opportunities and career paths that are available within the industry. My name is Jacob McAndrews. I am one of our talent pipeline project managers at the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. I am here with Lori Mays, who is also one of our project managers who works with me on the energy sector. And of course, Terry Lacey, who has kind of helped spearhead this group from the beginning and getting us all together. So again, thank you all for joining us. We're going to be talking about a couple different career paths within the energy industry. I will go ahead and share my screen here real quick so you all can see the agenda. We'll be talking about line technicians, which is perhaps one of the more iconic positions within the energy industry that might initially come to mind when you're thinking about it. But then we also have engineering, a litany of engineering positions available, as well as some other more behind the scenes positions that you might not think of top of mind when you think about the energy sector. So pretty excited for this conversation. It is going to be a little bit more conversation, a little bit more panel and question and answer sort of experience. So if at any point you have any questions or comments or want to add anything, feel free to just put it in the chat or raise your hand using the Zoom chat feature to do that. And with that, I will turn it over to Terry for a couple words.
Thank you, Jacob. Thanks everybody for being here this afternoon. This has been a long time coming. So I'm excited to do this. Before we get too far down the line though, you know, at East Kentucky, we start every meeting with a safety moment. So I just want to remind everybody, kind of look at their window. We're expecting some rough weather here in this part of the state, at least this afternoon, and maybe some high winds and things like that. So be weather aware as you're driving home tonight if you are working in the office. It's been a while since we've had a good rain, so there could be a lot of things on the streets making it slippery that, you know, have not been washed away for a while. So just be really, really careful on your way home. But anyway, I am excited to do this. I partnered with the chamber almost 2 years ago now to start this energy pipeline, and just, you know, kind of the high level viewpoint of that is we try to get organizations from across the state, utility organizations, including telecom. You know, this is not just an East Kentucky show, although I think we are kind of heavy on the agenda. But, you know, just to really be able to talk about the careers and the skills that we're going to need moving into the future. And we recognize, particularly in the electric utility business, that sometimes our careers aren't really talked about in a positive way because there's a lot of, you know, political headwinds that we face. In how we produce electricity and the things that we do that people don't understand. You know, they don't understand how we make the power that turns on the lights. They don't understand all the things that we do to protect the environment and different things like that. So anyway, we did you know, a series of data mapping exercises where we looked back, all these organizations that joined us looked back to see, you know, what are the positions that are in most need, critical need, and what kind of skills go along with that. And we kind of landed on line tech, as Jacob alluded to, as being one that is always in need, and we just can't find enough people to go into that career track. Engineering, again, we need a lot of engineers. We need electrical engineers and chemical and civils and mechanicals. Electricians and other high-level techs is another area that we really struggle to find people. So I've got Rick Oddie, who is from our system protection group, who can kind of speak to both of those, being an electrical engineer, but also having some high-level technical people that he finds or needs to find. And then just kind of lumped in, you know, the positions that we always need. You know, we still need accountants, we still need HR people and supply chain and all those other sorts of people too. So I know Elizabeth is going to talk about that a little bit, but you know, it was really, really interesting as we looked back to see that everybody had the same pain points. So these were not unique to East Kentucky. And the idea behind this was if we can really get in front of our educators and help them understand how to talk about the industry, how to talk about the things that we do to keep the environment safe, how to talk about, you know, some jobs that are career ready right out of high school, some jobs that take a little bit more education, that maybe you all would be better able to talk in the classroom to people about the industry and everything that we have to offer, because we have great careers to offer. that I think, again, sometimes people just don't think about. So that's kind of how this came to be. And like I said, we've been working on this for about 2 years, almost 2 years. And so I'm excited to kind of be at this point and give you all this information. Jacob, I'm not sure that Steve Anderson was having some trouble. We may want to bump him to the second just because he was having some trouble getting in. I don't know if you can see him or not on your end.
I believe I do see.
Do you see Steve? Okay.
I'm on now. Yeah.
Okay.
I had to go through my phone. My computer's, I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Thanks. So anyway, Jacob, back to you to kind of facilitate this.
Appreciate that, Terry. Thank you, Steve, for fighting through the technical difficulties and joining us today. Yeah, so we're going to kind of start off the conversation diving a little bit into the line technician role, just getting some basic information about that, talking about the various career paths and training that's required. But first, Steve, do you mind just giving us a quick introduction, kind of overview of your background?
Sure. My name's Steve Anderson. I'm an electrical engineer. Went to University of Kentucky. I've been in East Kentucky. This is starting my 34th year. My title is Director of Power Delivery Maintenance and System Operations. So the maintenance side of that, we have 4 service centers that serve our, that maintains our transmission system across the state. And within those service centers, we have line crews, which have line technicians that you want to talk about that are on those teams. And they maintain and operate about 3,000 miles of transmission line on our system across the state.
Yeah, Steve, do you mind telling us a little bit about those teams, kind of like what the makeup of that looks like and kind of the day-to-day?
Sure. So the crews, we have 5-man crews. With one of the members of the crew is a foreman, and then they have 4 line technicians. Like I said, each one of those work at a different service center that we have. They're responsible for the facilities, the lines that are in their area. They do things like inspection, like we have routine inspections where they'll go out and do foot patrols of the line and make sure that all the components of the line, poles and connectors and insulators and all that, switches and those things are in good shape. And then from time to time, the poles degrade and they need to be changed out. And so we put together projects where they go out and change those poles, and that's the main part of their job.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about what the training that is required to become a line technician?
Sure. So we're a transmission system, within the state. There, like down in Somerset, there is a lineman's school. I think it's an 8 or 12 week program, but a lot of those students that come out of that school would be ready to go to like some of the smaller distribution utilities, like some of the co-ops in the state, or just on the distribution side, which are lower voltage, smaller, or not, smaller size poles, shorter poles. So a lot of those guys go into the distribution cooperative, or they might also go work for some of the contractors in the state or even outside the state. So there's not a lot of training that they do to get started and become an entry-level lineman. They wouldn't be ready probably to work on a transmission system. So for our company, East Kentucky, we actually end up getting a lot of the more experienced guys and girls that would work at those distribution co-ops or those contractors. And as they get more experience, and they would come work for us. A lot of it's on the job training. The biggest part of it is to know how to climb poles, for instance, to start off. But then there's a lot of other technical knowledge they need to have as far as doing the job they do.
What is oh, sorry, Terry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and Steve, don't we typically tell people that it takes about 5 years to train and become kind of fully functional as a line tech? Is that about right?
Yeah, so a lot of the entry level techs will do do more work on the ground. They'll kind of be a support, just with getting equipment up to the guys on the pole or up in the bucket truck. They may, depending on their knowledge, their experience with operating equipment, like driving like bigger trucks and things like that, they would help with that. But yeah, you're looking at 4 to 5 years before you would actually be getting up on, climbing the pole and actually doing work, or getting in a bucket truck and actually performing lineman work.
Mhm.
And for you all, is there any like additional like classroom training or anything like that that is required to move up to that kind of next level after 4 or 5 years, or is it mostly just that on the job training?
It's mostly on the job training. At East Kentucky, we do have a skill-based program that was put together about 20 or so years ago. And so we have 3 levels of linemen, level 1, 2, and 3. And there's different tasks contained within each one of those levels that they have to have checked off by a supervisor or a more senior lineman to say that they can do those tasks. And as they complete those tasks, then that's how they progress through that skill base, those levels, and become, increase their compensation and become more experienced.
Appreciate that.
I think, Jacob, it's not always the case, but when we see people in more technical roles like linemen or, electrician or some of the technical positions that we have, those don't require college degrees. A lot of times, a vocational or a 2-year degree is helpful. But I always kind of tell people, if you ever think that you want to be in leadership, kind of a leadership role within that group, it might require some continuing education. Again, it's not always the case, but, to get to a position, obviously, like Steve has, that's going to require quite a bit of education. But even to get to a service center manager or something like that, if somebody has some additional education, they might get the nod towards leadership faster than somebody else. So just worth noting in that kind of perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that addition there, Terry. I think that does make a lot of sense. So Steve, I guess what I would ask you now is if there were a senior in high school who is interested in kind of going down this path, do you have any sort of advice that you would give them, or any sort of pitfalls to avoid, things to focus on, or even just like hey, here's something about the job that you should know before you head down this path?
Well, first of all, I guess just you would need to make sure that you're not afraid of heights, for one thing. I know, I think I've heard some stories from the instructor at the Somerset Line School. They'll have some individuals coming there thinking they want to be a lineman, and so day one they start climbing poles, and they realize real quickly that this is not for them. So you're going to be working at heights, and but we don't do as much climbing as we used to, but even in a bucket truck, there's going to be some heights involved. So that would be the first thing, I guess. And if you were interested, you could look into the Somerset Line School. I mean, I don't know, Terry, are there other ones across the state that I'm not aware of? Or
Yeah.
There's one near Moorhead as well.
Yeah.
I think there's one going in towards Pikeville, maybe, and I know around Louisville there's one that they're talking about too. So I think they're trying to get those kind of dispersed throughout the state, because there has been such a high demand, and that is a great career for somebody fresh out of high school who wants to be, doesn't want to sit in an office all day, wants more of a physical component, has a propensity to work on kind of tech or mechanical things, has that talent. So there's been a lot of interest in going into the lineman or line tech career family.
And I think if they're interested, they need to get on the list as soon as they can, because I talked to a young man the other day that was interested, and one of the schools, it was going to be March before they could get him in, and the other one, it was 8 months.
Yeah.
So, because of the interest you talk about, it really is, and the limited opportunity. And some people, even if they are located in other places, it's just too far from them to take advantage of those. So they get really backed up. So,
and most of them, and I think this is the important thing, most of them have jobs upon graduation, so it's not like they they graduate and kind of sit around. I mean, most of them, they're actively recruited and are placed well before that program is over. So another important point for the educators on the call to understand the marketability that these people have without a college degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just remember there's actually another opportunity that an area a school they could go to. We visited a place it's in northern Georgia, just below Chattanooga, called the Southeast Lineman Training Center. It's a large campus, and seemed like they had really good facilities. Might be an option. Of course, you'd have to, go away and live there for a little while, but it was a nice facility, and I think they have a real good placement, program where they find people jobs, like Terry was saying.
Mhm.
Appreciate
Steve, does
that, Steve.
ABO
Aaron?
offer, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to toss it real quick to Erin Tipton. She is with KCTC in the Bluegrass area, and I feel like she probably has some information here for us.
Thank you, Jacob. So, and Bruce Manley, who's a colleague and our executive director of our Winchester campus of BCTC, are on the call. And so, one of the things that we have been talking about is, we have our sister colleges within KCTCS. You all have mentioned some of those: Somerset, Maysville, Ashland, Jefferson have lineman programs, but Bluegrass doesn't have a formal lineman program. And so, we serve 14 counties in central Kentucky. So if there is interest among the partners that are on this call today, or even if for those that couldn't be with us today, we're constantly looking at ways that we can pivot to meet the needs. If there's an unmet need in our region, we're open to discussion. So, typically, for example, we're getting ready to start a CDL program, and that was in response to a lack of a CDL program in our region. We could look at doing the same thing with a lineman program that would serve our region. So I just want to throw that out there. Bruce, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that, but just know that we're open to the conversation.
Yeah, I would just add in that, here in Winchester, especially with East Kentucky Power Co-op being the headquarters right here in Clark County, we could set up some poles on our campus and do the full program right here in Winchester. So, if there's a demand and a need for that, and especially if I hear that students are on a waiting list, that tells me that students are wanting to get in. So if we could help alleviate that wait list problem, and, it would take our partners here on this call to be able to start that program up and have the capital to be able to do that. But I think that we could get that done if that's what the group wanted to accomplish here. I'd be more than willing to explore that possibility.
That's great.
I think you have retirees from here too, some that would probably be really interested in getting involved with teaching, that can't maybe physically do it themselves anymore, but really qualified and could teach it. So,
and we need those people. That I appreciate you mentioning that, because that would certainly is another component of being able to make a program happen. We're in the middle of trying to locate a CDL instructor right now. So I appreciate any leads that you can give us if we decide to go down this path.
yeah,
I'll mention. Go ahead, Belinda.
No, I was going to ask you real quick, Aaron. Do the people that would be involved with teaching it, do they, if they go, help do that for you all, are they required to have a college degree themselves, or is their business experience enough? Because, a lot of these guys went straight into being a lineman and they didn't necessarily get a college degree.
And that's where it gets tricky for us, because for our accrediting body, they have to have an associate's degree and the certification in the field, and usually a couple of years experience. So sounds like the certification and the experience aren't the issue. Sounds like there's plenty of people, but we do have to, because if we award credit for it, we have to have that at least a 2-year degree. It can be a 2-year degree in anything, but they have to have the 2-year degree.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
I was going to mention, we do have facilities here at our headquarters too. we have a lot of poles. We do some training back here behind our buildings that would be, we could possibly partner with you all to do some stuff out there if you needed.
Well,
And-
I'll make a note of that, Steve and Bruce, and maybe we can talk offline about how we get that going.
Yeah, because if there's already, some infrastructure out there to teach the courses, then, there's no reason why, if we can't identify an instructor, then we can start either awarding credit through the academic side, or we could do it through a workforce training program through Workforce.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for that discussion. This is why we bring the educators and the employers together, right? It's to make these sort of connections and make that sort of path forward. So really appreciate that conversation. Any other comments from our employers on the call about line technicians, kind of that career path? Anything that you want to add in that we didn't already cover?
Hey, John Porter, I saw you get on the call. Is there anything you'd like to add? John also works in our power delivery maintenance side.
Oh, hey there, John. Good to see you.
Actually, Terry, no, not from the line side. I was actually just sitting here thinking and actually messaging Dina about some substation technician program, and I know that was my route. I went to BCTS, and that is the basis for a lot of the electrical background. Really helped me on the substation side, and I wonder if that would, if we kind of partner and look at something in that direction.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll make a note and maybe we can get in touch with Bruce over the next couple of weeks and start that conversation. So thanks for that, John.
May I interject one more thing? I promise not to hijack this meeting. So I just want to also share, because this is new with Bluegrass, with BCTC. We just launched Handshake, which is an online jobs platform. I see several people nodding. And that, the University of Kentucky uses it, other higher ed institutions use it. And what I love about it is it's much more user-friendly on the employer side and the student side. So if you're posting positions, you can post them to multiple higher ed Handshake sites. So I guess just as part of this conversation, we'll be sure to get information to Jacob that he can then share with the group on how you can post your positions. We'd love to get, our electrical program grads connected to you. We'll have a batch of graduates coming out in December. So now's a really good time for us to be talking. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Erin. Thank you. And thank you, Steve and John, for giving us your expertise and talking to us a bit about the line technician career and kind of what the pathway leading to that looks like. So really appreciate you guys being here. Now we're going to transition a little bit and still kind of keeping on the electrical side of things, talk a little bit about engineering in the energy sector. And here with us, we have Sarah Fraley, who I believe is an environmental engineer, as well as Rick. I don't want to butcher your last name.
Rick Oddie.
Adi, yes.
Adi, great to see you. Who is the manager of system protection and control. So appreciate you guys being here as well. Sarah, do you mind starting and just giving us a quick background introduction for yourself?
Sure. So I'm Sarah Fraley. As you mentioned, I work in actually the environmental compliance department, environmental affairs, as a supervisor of environmental compliance. But my schooling and background is actually chemical engineering.
Okay.
So completely opposite of the electrical field, but chemical engineers are needed even within our energy industry as well, which a lot of people probably don't think of, because you normally think of the electrical side of the company more than the other parts, the other engineers that kind of go into play a role. But like I said, my background is chemical engineering, but most actually all my industry experience has been in the environmental departments. I worked for KU previously for about 4 years, and I've been now with UKPC for almost 8, and worked primarily in environmental compliance. So, most of my main duties and responsibilities are helping to ensure that we remain compliant with all the environmental regulations that we have, and our industry faces a lot of those. So there's a lot of different roles that kind of go in that. We work, with our power generating facilities to make sure they know what the rules are that they have to comply with. We'll work, some of our engineers within our department, work specifically with the engineers and the engineering and construction groups within our company to make sure projects are being that need to be completed, to make sure that we, are complying with the rules that are coming out or have come out. That's kind of my background, a little bit of my history.
Appreciate that. Perfect, Sarah. Rick, you mind doing the same?
So Rick Gotti, I'm an electrical engineer. Started my career at KU. Was there about 5 or 6 years, and I've been at East Kentucky now for 18. Currently manager of our protection and control group. Basically been in this group since I've been here. So a lot of my background is in relays and controls. Our group is responsible for those relaying and control for generator protection, all the way from generator transmission through distribution coordination. We interact a lot with our member co-ops to provide protection for that. We're also involved, recently incorporated our SCADA and metering group also. So we're responsible for the alarming and controls telemetry from what's out in the field back to our dispatch or operations center.
Hey, Rick, do you mind to explain just a little bit about like what relays are and things like that? And, having the relay techs that report to you, just for the purposes of this call, they are our highest paid technical role in the organization. Again, a great career field. We can never find them because they are so specialized and they're very much in demand. And I think for the benefit of the educators on the call, do you care to explain kind of what that is and what kind of education you'd be looking for on the technician side?
So on the relay tech side, a lot of where when we're looking for candidates, it's hard to find with specific relay experience. So what a lot of times what we end up getting is, electricians. So they're familiar with control circuits, that this person needs to be or will learn to be computer savvy because we've got to test the equipment. So we're using a lot of computer programs, familiar with, like I said, test equipment, familiar with control circuitry, familiar with reading drawings. We are, we're basically right next to a, trigger finger all the time because we got to isolate things to make sure that we don't, trip off other equipment. So just very technical in the control circuitry piece.
Mm-hmm. So we typically, maybe we'll find an electrician or a CNI tech or something like that that's done that sort of work. I think that's just important for the educators to understand, kind of, because you just don't see relay tech programs that I've seen, at least. Where do they kind of come from? And I think relay techs are kind of an evolution of the electrician role to some degree. Is that a fair statement?
It is, and a lot of it, like Steve mentioned earlier, is on the job training. If we're not getting somebody from a neighboring utility or a utility elsewhere, we're taking that electrician. We actually just recently hired, I guess it's been it's been almost 2 years now, but we hired a guy that was a testing, he worked with a testing firm. So kind of had the testing background, where he was testing not necessarily relays, but meters, testing test equipment and things of that sort. So, he was familiar with, circuitry, he was familiar with testing. So, just kind of gave him a good background, familiar with computer programs, kind of gave him a good background for, us to train him to do specifically what we need them to do.
Yeah, it's just something I felt like was worth elaborating on, since that's such a specialty area within our industry that, obviously people understand electrician and that sort of thing, but that there is variety even within that role. As educators talk to kids in the classroom about, there's a lot of things beyond just wiring a house that electricians can do. So I thought that was an important point to make. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Tara. I think the emphasis on kind of that on-the-job training is really important, and kind of having those base skills that you can bring to the table, like, familiarity with the electrical work and things like that. But at the end of the day, like Rick mentioned, it's, you're going to get computer savvy because that's just like what the work is. So I think that is really important to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you mind telling us a little bit about, like the competencies and skills, like with a position like yours? Because when you were talking, I was like, in my mind, I was just thinking this is a lot of like legal stuff. So do you have to kind of be familiar with like legal terminology and things like that to do your job, or is it more of that technical side on the engineering?
You learn a lot of legalese in this job, but you don't have to have it to start out with. That is all on the job. You're learning. No, I mean, I think a lot of probably for this type of position, and even the engineers, it's really, you're obviously going to have your base, 4-year engineering degree, and most of what you learn when you're in engineering school is a lot of how to problem solve, and how do you when you get a problem in front of you, how do you go about trying to solve it? I mean, it seems like we're constantly in different roles throughout this company, fighting fires to a certain extent with things that come up. When it comes, to environmental and the regulations that come out, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to have to comply with them, whether we like it or not, to, a certain extent. So we have to work together to be able to, come to a solution, to be able to make sure the company stays in compliance. And, we take pride on our environmental stewardship within the company and maintaining a clean compliance record and not having violations and enforcement fines, because if we have those, it's going to eventually affect our rates potentially. It's going to affect the end user, the consumer of the electricity, you all, and we serve a very poor area of the country and of the state, state and country really. So there's a lot of the skills that you kind of learn in school help you with being able to tackle a lot of those those problems that might come about. For the legal side of things, that's a lot. You just there is a lot there, and that's a lot I've had to learn since being in this role. And I think there's a lot of different areas within our company too that end up touching on legal potential issues, within different parts. But yeah, there's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, a lot of laws, but we have a legal team behind us that helps support, and they're the ones that are going to help us with that final interpretation if there's gray areas. So, but there is a lot of technical stuff too. I work a lot with numbers, analyzing trends, and those types of things to, I keep a close eye on our emissions that we're emitting out of our stacks, because we have to look at hourly averaging, 3-hour averaging, 30-day averaging, daily averaging. So there's a pretty strong math component to it as well. So, and there's some computer stuff too.
Hey, Jacob, I want to elaborate a little bit on the competency question. I think it's a good one. We see a lot with our, because we employ a number of really technical people. I mean, engineers and techs, I mean, they are very, very technical, and they come out of, whether it's high school or vocational school or college, and they come out very well prepared to be that technician. The competencies sometimes that we miss are the softer skills. And I think this is an important thing for the educators to understand is, we will take all the people that we can find to hire and to give really good careers, but they have to learn, they have to be comfortable like working with people and solving problems and making decisions and communicating. Those soft skills are something, and I think particularly as we are coming out of COVID, where so much of the education was done online, I think that we neglect to really pay attention to how important those communication skills and those being able to collaborate and just work with other people is critical. And those are things that sometimes we have to fix once your students get here. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of training, a lot of money, a lot of energy. If they can come to us with those skills, they're going to be that far ahead in their career.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Terry. I think it really does kind of build on what we've been talking about, right? Where it is a lot of on-the-job training, but people need to be able to, accept that on-the-job training, right? And like work in those collaborative groups and kind of have that learning mindset in order to be successful in something like that. So I think that's a great point and well made. Sarah, Rick, anything else that either of you would want to add with kind of what we've been talking about? Any key pieces of advice or things to know about your roles? Any just kind of last thoughts like that?
I'll take a stab first. I guess the one thing, if you have students that are looking at, engineering field, they're interested in it. They seem to really have, that passion towards, math and science and those STEM fields, please encourage them and let them know that, there's plethora of opportunities within the engineering field. I mean, within the obviously we're talking specifically about the energy industry, but I mean, when I went to school, I did chemical engineering because I liked chemistry, I liked math. Those were kind of my focuses, things I was good at. I figured I'd be in a chemical manufacturing facility, or I'd be doing something along those lines, process manufacturing, along that line. Never did it enter my mind when I was a freshman in college, after my senior year of high school, that I would end up in the environmental field. That was definitely not my path. That I didn't necessarily have a destination I was going to other than to be able to get a job after college. But just, continue to encourage those kids to still, even if you don't know exactly where you want to go, but you think that engineering is what you want to do, encourage them to have an open mind and to give it a try. And, you might end up somewhere where you never thought you would, and it'll turn out just fine and dandy. So,
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks
Good
for that,
advice,
Sarah.
Sarah. Thanks.
So I'll just add that, from an East Kentucky standpoint, there's, I'll talk about the engineers, that our field guys, they pretty much stay out in the field the whole time. But, from an engineering, I think most all of our engineers in the company, it's kind of split duty. We go out in the field, we get a chance to get out and see, we do the designs and we get to go out and watch it be put in service also. There are, strict office jobs also, but a lot of the engineering jobs here, are, we get to go out and see the product be put in service. So that to me was was an important piece for, actually, when I was at KU, it was the same way, but that was an important piece for me once I got into the utility space. So
Yeah, great point, great insight. Do we have any questions from the educators, or any employers on the call have anything they want to add as far as engineering goes?
My name is John Knoll, and I'm a principal at Elkhorn Crossing School, Career Tech School in Georgetown, Kentucky. We have an engineering program and an IT program, and I like the conversation of introducing these different career options for our students. Do you all ever come to the schools to talk a little bit about what you do, just to kind of maybe fuel that fire a little bit, or that spark in a young student's mind? And then on top of that, I appreciate Aaron Tipton from BCTC. We have a lot of great connections with the post-secondary schools. And so that's another way, if they were to start a program there, that's something that is a nice lead in for our students as well. But I guess just going back to that first question of if anybody, can we come to you, or can you all come to us to talk to the kids?
John, I'll take that one as a proud ECS parent. I will field that question. Actually, we've done both. We've come to you all. And then for a couple of years pre-COVID, we had Rhonda Cosgrove when she was still at ECS. We took 2 or 3 classes of her pre-engineering students up to Spurlock Power Plant, which is in Maysville. And they spent the day touring, and we had our environmental engineers up there because the kids were really interested in that. Spurlock does a lot of really interesting things, in terms of like peregrine falcon. We have nests of peregrine falcons up there, and they got to learn about that. They got to tour our coal yard where they see the fuels and how much fuel it actually takes. And then they put their hard hats on and hearing protection. And we sent them out into the plant where they could actually see what it takes to run a power plant. So yeah, that option is there. The other option is, to come to us in Winchester. It's not quite as exciting as Spurlock, but we do have a big solar farm out back that some of our member services people will host tour groups. We've got a lot of things that we've done in terms of like the monarch butterfly and bees and, pollinator flowers and all those things. So kids really like that. And I can always find somebody who can come to you in a classroom, even beyond engineering and some of these things, and I know Elizabeth is going to talk about other careers that we need, but we need a lot of engineers and techs, there's no doubt about it, but we also still need accountants and finance people and supply chain people and all that. So yeah, we can do both, and we are happy to do both.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that real quick, Terry. One of the programs that the Kentucky Chamber Foundation helps to administer is called the Bus to Business program. And we kind of do that in conjunction with our industry work with Talent Pipeline Management. And basically, like, we connect employers and schools to do exactly what you're talking about, whether it's in the classroom, like presentation style, or, the fun one is always, getting the kids on the bus and taking them out to the facility. And something that we can do is help connect you guys with employers who are regionally located near you all. So yes, if anyone is interested in doing something like that, or just kind of hearing about what our different options are and kind of what that might look like, I will put my email in the chat as well.
We actually did a Bus to Business last year, and I think Sarah presented on that one as well. And we can certainly share that presentation with anybody who's interested, in the short term, in terms of understanding some of the careers that we have available.
We even during COVID, and I know this is not idea, but if you ever run into a situation where you have to have a program and you just can't work out the scheduling, I know we had a lab person, and then from HR standpoint, we recorded these videos just talking about our experience and how we got to where we were and what the education took and what kind of salary that we received and what a typical day looked like for us and the pros and cons of our jobs. And the teacher said that was really helpful too, because I just was kind of able to show those to multiple classes. Like I say, again, it's not idea, but in a time of COVID, it was another option that we found that to meet some of the need.
And John, this is Brad Young. I actually, like Terry, I have a child over there at your old school as well. So I've had another one graduate from there. And then also I saw Billy on here. I've had one graduate from Scott County. So I've actually been over at Scott County on behalf of EKPC as well, presented. So if you ever need anyone's help, or if you ever want to arrange a tour like what Terry's saying, we can definitely trade information and we can coordinate some kind of tour. We also have multiple substation projects that we can try to get you all to see, but we have a large combustion turbine plant that's here in Clark County as well, that any potential future mechanicals would like to see, we can do that.
Yep.
So.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Jacob, may I say a few before we move to the next part? As John had got me thinking about this as far as our partnerships, BCTC's partnerships with schools like his and with Scott County schools. One of the things, again, it's a solution. It's not the solution, but if we talk about ways that we're getting individuals in the pipeline, and I think about our graduates, so 8-10 years ago, students would come into our programs and they would be full-time students with us. They'd probably be working in a field that was non-related to their major. So if they were in an electrical program, they might be, doing something non-related while they were a student. But now we've seen a dramatic shift over the past, 5-6 years where students really have jobs before. I mentioned our December graduates. Well, a lot of those students already have job offers, or they're already working for companies. So, again, one solution could be youth apprenticeship, at the high school level as we partner, and then moving students into a formal apprenticeship program, whether it's registered or not registered. I think integrated work and learn programs are the way to go for some of these technician positions. So, again, be happy to send some information to Jacob to share, just to think about that. And so it addresses some of the things that Terry was talking about earlier with soft skills. We do realize that sometimes we have individuals that graduate our programs that maybe they haven't been in that work environment and don't understand the concept of, what it is to be a good team member and that type of thing. And so the benefit of apprenticeship is that you're with them throughout their education. And so you're helping mentor them, so to speak, along the way. So again, it's not the only solution, but it is a solution to think about as far as your talent pipeline needs.
Appreciate that, Erin. And thank you, Sarah and Rick, for joining us to talk a bit about your all's positions and what you do. I feel like, yeah, really great conversation. And Lori, thank you for sharing that link to the Bus to Business website that we were talking about earlier. So that is in the chat along with my contact info if you are interested in that. All right. Well, now I wanted to talk with Elizabeth here, Elizabeth Alvey from Warren Electric, joining us here today to just kind of talk about all the other kind of unsung heroes in the energy industry, and just kind of all the different pieces that come together to make it work. So Elizabeth, do you mind giving us a quick introduction?
No problem. Elizabeth Alvey, I'm the HR coordinator here at Warren RECC in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Been here, it'll be 8 years tomorrow, so happy anniversary to me.
Yeah.
WKU grad, go Tops. So born, raised in Bowling Green, very familiar with the utility service industry. I worked at the water district growing up through college, and then got hired here after I graduated. So this whole utility is like my home. So what I do here, and I was HR assistant, I'm now HR coordinator. We're hiring an HR assistant. That's not one of the ones we need help finding with a job for, or candidates for, but what kind of open the eyes, if you will, to all the other jobs available here at Warren. We did the SCK launch, which is, I don't know if it's part of the Bus to Business program or not, through the chamber, but we had kids come back in 2020, right before COVID happened, and then we did it again this year, and it's been a great success. We're probably going to continue doing that one. We had kids come in, they had no idea other fields outside of just being like the lineman, which is like the face of an electric company. An example is like we have a garage and we have mechanics that work on our fleet of 160 vehicles. And one of the kids that was there, he lit up like a Christmas tree whenever we stopped in the garage. And he was like, I had no idea that you all had a garage here. And so that goes into, the stereotype is, you're lineman and you see the office where you pay your bills, but the other stuff that goes into jobs that we've had a lot of, not issues, just hard time filling, or took a while to find somebody. IT, those jobs, just simple. We're growing so fast, and technology we have to have it to operate. So finding something as simple as a network technician. We've got 2 in the garage that are fixing to retire, and we've got 2 in our IT that one can code, so he could retire at any moment. So that's going to be a challenge. Finding general accountants always, and especially with CPAs. We put one of our employees through the CPA, and he got his CPA while he worked here, so we were able to work there. GIS technicians is another one, that finding candidates with like AutoCAD experience and like that mapping, like ArcGIS is what we use. Just, that's such a refined skill set that's really hard to find. Substation technicians are really hard to find. Anybody who works inside a substation, not just gets up to the gate and then calls a contractor. That's really hard to find for us. A lot of the times we hire linemen who they don't want to be in the lineman field anymore. And so they're familiar with the substation, but essentially still start from ground zero. So I know that's a little bit of all over the place, but that is the background of just random jobs that we need to operate, and they're really difficult to find those qualified candidates.
Yeah. I appreciate you kind of giving us that wide scope, Elizabeth. I feel like that's kind of like what we need, right? It's to show that there is
all over the
all of these
board.
positions that, like if you can think of something, like you probably need it as part of an electric cooperative. So I think that makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I wanted to talk with you about a little bit is, I know when we met a few weeks back, you were telling me some of like the work-based learning things that you've done. Like I believe you had an engineer who was doing work-based learning with you all. I was just kind of curious if, from the high school, K through 12 angle, if you had anything that you wanted to add with that as far as just getting the exposure in the industry goes and whatnot.
Right, electrical, we still have yet to fill an electrical engineering position. He's been 5 years with us this November. We were able to hire, we did an internship through Western, because they have an electrical engineering program. We did an internship with Trevor, one of our electrical engineers, and he worked part-time with us. He went to school the other half of the time, and after he got out of school, we hired him on. So we are also open to that for this current electrical engineering position. Something I think we as a company need to be a little bit more open to in areas such as IT or accounting or some like administrative positions, where maybe we could do 2 part-time job sharing people to get them that experience. And I know with engineers, they are chasing the dollar now, and they could go and work for these companies where you're manufacturers, but you're also putting in 60, 70, 80 hours a week, versus here, I mean, you're going to maybe work 5 to 10 hours of overtime, just depending on the week. So I wish there was a way to make that attractive. I don't know if until you start to grow up and have your family and want to be home more, if you can instill that in any K through 12 students. But it's not just about the dollar. The stability here, like we're not going anywhere. We're only growing. We're only getting bigger, and just the security there. I don't know how to sell it. I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, and I think part of that, Elizabeth, is doing those sort of site-based visits and things like that, right? To kind of spark that interest and that just kind of like love of the work. And yeah, like you said, it's the stability. Everyone needs electricity. You're not going to get downsized probably if you're in that field, which is always nice. And then yeah, as far as the work-based learning goes, getting people in the door, kind of involved in the industry, that is something that we also do with Bus to Business. So one of the big things that we're focused on, particularly this year, is connecting students to those work-based learning opportunities. So educators on the call, if you have students who you think might be interested in doing an internship, a co-op, something like that, feel free to reach out to us at the Chamber, because that is something that we are very happy to help with. Any other thoughts, questions on those kind of other positions in the energy sector, those things that might be a little bit behind the scenes, but just as critical?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, what I think people don't understand, and Elizabeth alluded to it, is like, we're a real business, right? So it's not just about making power in a power plant. It's about, paying the bills and buying the things that we need. And at East Kentucky, we're a sizable business, and we get involved in some really complex things and really need people who understand the business side of things. I mean, the electrical industry is a little unique, and certainly the co-op world, I think, is even a little bit more unique. But there are great career offerings available for anybody who's interested. It's just a matter of finding your niche.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all for taking an hour out of your afternoon to come join us and talk a little bit about the energy industry. Like I said, my contact information is in the chat. So if you have any other questions, think of anything, want to become involved with Bus to Business, or do some work-based learning, feel free to reach out to me. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.